Okay, alright. Oops, it's a wee bit crooked. How's that? Oh, that's pretty good. You can see some of the forest. Welcome to Water Walk video podcast number God only knows. Oh, it's lovely this week. Hardly any rain at all. Bits and pieces. So far, August was rainy as hell. Into a little bit into early September. And then this last week so far, it's been, I shouldn't say week because it's only Monday today. So how long has it been dry? It's been pretty dry, like since Thursday maybe, I guess. Something like that. Anyway, so I appreciate that myself. Yeah. So what? Oh, I got a rock right on my butt. I have to find my traditional spot. There we go. Put the butt cheeks in between rocks. It's an important technique to learn. For sitting on the ground. The bottom. Let's see how the water's looking. Oh, quite clear actually. Lovely. So, what's on the agenda for today? Oh, actually, I was going to talk about guitars, but I should talk about more environmental things. Okay, so 2 things in my mind. Of course, Greta Thunberg's still in the news. She'll be in the news for a while, I'd say. And a lot of people are criticizing her and praising her. I think more praising than criticizing. And then a huge number of people go, who's Greta Thunberg? You know, that's quite a few probably. But like, for instance, Maxime Bernier, who's a Canadian politician, has been criticizing her for being mentally unstable or something like that. I mean, he's not wrong, right? She's had some issues. However, just because you're a little bit unstable and all that, you know, Asperger and stuff. Asperger. That's a funny term. I've got Asperger. Yes, you do. Oh dear. Am I going to get in trouble now? I'm going to get demonetized from YouTube. All my, like, 11 watchers per episode. I don't know. I probably shouldn't worry about being demonetized because probably take me 100 years to get like $10 from YouTube. Anyway, that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm not doing it for the money. Maybe I'm doing it because I'm lonely. Not really. I live in a village. I mostly speak Thai, by the way. Like, I think English, of course, because, you know, English speaking, but I speak more Thai until I get to Chiang Mai and see my mom. I speak more Thai than English, which kind of sounds impressive if you look at it from a certain angle. However, if you knew me and spoke Thai, you go, oh, you have limited conversations. But I try my best and I have a great time, and everyone is so awesome here, so it's all good fun. Okay, so yeah, Greta Thunberg. Been wondering about that. Anyway, so people are posting Maxime Bernier's tweet or something about her being unstable, right? Like, he's not wrong, but it's not quite right. Anyway, just because someone's not of the norm, I guess you could say, doesn't mean they don't have a right or an ability to comment on things like environmental stuff and climate change, right? Doesn't mean that at all. And some would argue, and are arguing, that because of her affliction, can't say affliction, I'm sure, that she might have a clearer view of it all. That could be. That could be. Anyway. So there's been like the more right-wingers that have been commenting negatively. And then also some heavily studying the issue of climate and ecological collapse that are also criticizing her. And rightly, I guess. I mean, the thing with Bernier is the problem with, like, did he make that tweet or whatever it was to get, virtue points from his constituency? Maybe. But also, if people post, say, oh, Maxime Bernier said this about Greta, it's like, everyone has to tell their opinion, and by posting that, you're using it as a political statement, right? So in essence, you're using the Greta thing for your own political or social gains, I guess you could say. So I don't know if that's quite. Maybe it's just inevitable, but I don't know if that's quite right to do. I was just like, oh, Maxime said something stupid, as people often do on that Twitter thing. Can't be bothered with it. I can't figure Twitter out, actually. It's like, what a massive... Like, how do you... Anyway, Facebook's bad enough. Anyway, so, and also I've made some comments on the Greta Thunberg phenomenon, we'll say. She herself, I always think, well, she's entitled to say whatever she wants. And maybe I think it's probably a good thing she's saying this stuff. For her own, as a single person and stuff. But for me, the spin around her is a little problematic and all that. However, I've been thinking about it. Why it bugs me, personally. Because some people are also thinking she's sort of, that the various, green industrial stuff, green industrial entities are using her. Do you know what I mean? Say maybe manipulating, using. Could be, like, it's never so simple, right? Which is part of the problem. Everyone wants a simple answer, but it's far from simple. Anyway, so, what was I saying? Yeah. So, for my part, I listened to a talk she did in Paris or something in July, just yesterday. Just want to keep checking up. I want to try not to get too biased, right, in my own, because I have a certain perspective of things. So I'm trying to listen to her, and it's interesting. Anyway, she says things like, if we want to keep the civilization, we have to blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, that's probably why. I mean, okay, let me get back to that. There's another aspect that I can't help but wonder. It's like, I can't help but wonder if just a little bit people are getting irritated from her because she's getting all this goddamn, she's getting all this bloody attention. This 16-year-old doesn't, anyway, this 16 doesn't know shit in some ways about anything. From their own process. Or maybe she does, I don't know. Anyway, let's leave that alone. But then there's people, I've been doing this for 20 years and everyone tells me to screw off. And then there's this kid shows up and blah, 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 blah. Everyone's listening to her. So maybe there's a little bit of that in there, It wouldn't surprise me. And it wouldn't surprise it if that's part of what's in me too. Right? I'm going, Jesus Christ, I've been saying this for 20 years. And people tell me I'm like arrogant and a bitch and things. People have said that to me. Anyway. But anyway, I will say that, yeah, that could be in there somewhere. But it's not the main thing for me, I don't think. Oh, look, I've done all the water. How many minutes? How long does it take? 10 minutes. So it takes me about 10 minutes at this rate of flow to fill up my water jugs. But it takes me like an hour and a half to do this, especially when I do these silly talks. How about I eat a banana? So anyway, so that little sort of dark, shadowy thing, let's just set aside and acknowledge it and all that. But for me, here's the issue. It's like, I'm getting back to my other point. We have to do something now if we want to save this civilization, right? So for basically pretty much all my adult life, and I would say even in my teens, I've always loved being in nature. It's just what I love to do. And even I guess when I started doing bigger solo trips, I was still a teenager, but not, I was later, right? It was later, like after 16. Anyway, so I've always thought, they just throw the garbage in the forest. I always thought, it's not garbage, banana peel. I don't know. And the banana tree right here. I thought, oh, the problem is the civilization. That's it. Like, if the motivation is to maintain civilization, forget, like, to my view, it's hardly even worth the breath to counter it, right? If that's what's wanted, is to maintain things as they are, it's impossible. I would say it's impossible. Just freaking caveat. It's just my opinion. It's what I see, right? I see there's lots of other opinions, and I listen to them, right? And try to listen with trying to understand. But that's how I see it. I'm like 61. I'll be 62 in a few months. That's my whole life. This is a long time, right? Definitely for 40 years, this has been on my mind. It's like, oh, this is trouble. We have to get back to the good old hunter-gatherer days. I have some friends that agree with me and like that idea, but most people can't bear it. You know, or whatever. But, so, what I listened to yesterday, Greta's saying that we need to do something if we want to preserve this civilization, right? It's very anthropocentric, right? It's very human-centered. She does talk about the environment, like other animals and stuff like that. Give her credit. But my sense is it's more or less to maintain the status quo. It's always been my thing. I just over and over and over again I say, oh, well, John A. Livingston, the great Canadian naturalist who passed away in 2005, back in the 80s, late 80s, in a CBC interview, he said, look, the environmental movement is mostly made up of people that are trying to keep everything the same but still get away with it. That's, to my mind, pretty much the same issue, you know. Anyway, so to me, that's what Greta's on about, and you know, fine. She's welcome to voice her opinions. But people love that because that's what people want, right? If you, especially a kid says, you know what? Basically, I wonder if you could say, you know what? If we just do this, we can keep this, right? It's like, I don't think so. Because we're forgetting a lot of, it's not simple actually. We're forgetting, it's layered, so layered, right? So we're forgetting some vital aspects, like humans need habitat, as Guy McPherson says all the time, right? Humans need habitat too. Anyway, so now I'm about to shift, and also Guy McPherson often mentions that he's quoting someone else whose name I can't remember. He says that part of the problem is that civilization itself is a heat engine. So no matter what technological doodads you might add, whether it's renewable energy, well, blah, 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 it doesn't really in the end matter because the civilization structure itself is creating the heat, right? You get all renewables, you're not going to reverse it. Anyway, we're getting to a bit too much complications. It's a basic philosophy, we'll say. Anyway, which I agree with. But shifting from that into my other thing I've been pondering is this idea that technology removes us from nature. right? And I've thought, this is also something I've thought about since I was in my 20s, really. And, but it's sort of been brought to light for me again, like it's just coming up in my head a lot because of a talk that I watched video of. I'll link the video below, with Arthur Keller. It's a French something or other. Anyway, he speaks about different scenarios of like human growth and economic growth combined with ecological stuff, and he presents 4 scenarios, with the fourth one being what he thinks is likely to happen, right? And possible option along the way. So this has got me thinking again of technology and nature, because in the third one he says what's happening, he thinks, is that even though what needs to be done is kind of a degrowth idea, but what's happening is that through things like technological aspects like renewable energy is the one that pops in my brain. There's other aspects too, for sure. Is that what's kind of happening is a decoupling of the economic system away from the ecological system, right? And that's been happening for a long time, but maybe we can say it's becoming very, very clear now, to some at least. And it's an illusion, right? It's the idea that, if we just get the right technology, we can isolate ourselves from the natural world, right? I mean, there's so many examples of that happening, not just recently, but for a long time. And I'm sure my friend Brendan over in Australia, that's a lot of what he writes beautifully about, actually, and thoughts and things, and that's, I'm sure, hey Brendan, that's kind of what, we have similar thoughts on that. So anyways, to me, this is a complete disaster, right? It's impossible, because we're forgetting that we're natural beings, right? As John Livingston, my actual hero, someone says, Derek Jensen's like your hero, your guru. It's like, nah, he's interesting, blah, 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 blah. Jordan Peterson, he's like your hero. It's like, nah, he's interesting. Great, they're all great thinkers. But John A. Livingston says, John A. Livingston's like your hero. I went, damn right. Oh shoot, I was going to quote him. Now I can't remember what I was going to say. John A. Livingston. Shoot. What was I talking about? I bleed, something like, I bleed when I'm cut, and I'm delighted that I'm a biological being, right? That's more or less what he was saying. Yeah, that's right. I feel the same way. Anyway, so I have this idea of writing a piece about technology and connection with nature, and I think, and my first thought goes to, like, when I first started doing all my I did mostly hiking, but also a lot of canoeing, all that solo stuff. I always went I was really attracted to the technological equipment, right? And one of them was boots. I'm just going to focus on boots. And I kind of bought into that, the heavier boot, the better. Like, people were hiking in basically mountaineering boots that you could almost put crampons on, like, which are used to climb ice. You could put crampons with hinges on them, I guess you could say. Because the rigid crampons, you need that plastic mountaineering boots, which actually they didn't have back then, 40 or 50, 45 years ago. So I kind of bought into that. I didn't buy those heavy mountaineering boots, but I bought pretty heavy boots, right? I thought, now I've got it, and got the blisters and stuff to show for it. And then just over time, I thought, this is sort of bullshit. Because I thought of course, I'm from Ontario and Quebec, Ontario mostly, and part of my upbringing, because I spent a lot of time up north. Anyway, part of my upbringing was a kind of remembering and honoring of how people used to live here, which would be the native people, like Ojibwe, Cree, Iroquois was down the south. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like, I loved all that stuff. Like, so I thought, oh, geez, they weren't wearing like mountaineering boots with 3-inch soles. They're like walking around in moccasins. So gradually over time, I thought, oh, there's something to learn from that, I think. So over time, I started to take away, try to simplify my gear as much as possible. So, and then it came to softer and softer boots, say, and then in the end, in Ontario, I was doing all my canoe trips in moccasins, right? Because I started making moccasins in my teens, actually, late teens. So this was all happening all together, these ideas, right? And then also very quickly, like very, very quickly, I started to sleep under tarps, say, not full tents, you know? Even though the high-tech tents and stuff were so attractive, right? Yeah, there's something in, I want that technological thing, because the technology will protect me from the horrors of nature, right? That's taking it to a really wide statement. But at some primal level, we have a fear of nature, right? This has to be going back as humans a couple million years, I'm sure, and as animals much longer. That's really, to me, really quite understandable, right? However, there's the balance, right? Yeah. So anyway, when I was doing all my outdoor stuff, pretty quickly, by the time I was in my, I don't know, mid-20s, my equipment was pretty minimal. If it wasn't bug season, of course, then I would just sleep under a tarp. And also everything makes it lighter, and all that stuff. And then I guess the last aspect of being less technological were knapsacks, right? I used to have some really great mountaineering style knapsacks, and now I'll show you this at the end, because my camera or my phone is leaning on my pack. But now I just use a black ash canoe pack basket, and I actually think it's better. Anyway, lots of fun experiment with that. I love that, right? Yeah. So, and then that gets into things like in the modern times, we have phones, we have GPS. I mean, I grew up using maps and stuff, right? And compass. Hardly ever used a compass, to tell you the truth. I think my general navigational instincts are quite good, right? But I always had maps, always had a compass. Just because. Plus, also, I would travel a lot in more hilly, mountainous country, right? And to my mind, if you know the lay of the land, it's not that difficult to figure out how things work. So now GPS, all that stuff comes into play. So higher level technology, electronics, come into outdoor play, right? So when I was on my long ride, so for those that don't know, I did a 3-year solo ride on horseback through the Alberta and Saskatchewan prairies, or Alberta and Saskatchewan prairies into the foothills of Alberta. Anyway, I mostly used maps too, but I also had the phone, I had a camera. But I was thinking, I also had an emergency spot device thing. I can press it and it'll send a satellite link to emergency services. It tells you where you are and stuff. It's good. It's smart to do that, right? I'm not saying I regretted it, but I was aware doing that it just creates that slight removal from the reality of the moment, right? There's a risk with that stuff that you become less aware of what's around you, right? If at some subtle level you think, I can just press the emergency button. It's never that straightforward, right? The thought process, I don't think, but then maybe it makes you tend to be less closely aware of what's around you at all times, right? So when you do solo trips in the wilderness, you have to be very conservative. There's no like, oh, let's do the extremes. Like, no, 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 no. Because dangers abound, you could say, right? And nature isn't the benign, kind thing that will just take care of you. It is that too, but it's also, nature doesn't, you could say, just does its thing, right? And you can get caught up in it, and that can be trouble. So you need to be awake and aware at all times. Yeah, Kendo's good for that. Let's do a Kendo promo. Okay, so there you go. I guess that's enough. What are we at? 20 freaking 5 minutes? Oh, listen to those insects. It's beautiful, eh? Beautiful to hear insects, actually. There's a lot of stuff out there about declining insect populations, so yeah. Anyway, I think that's enough. Maybe I got my thoughts through okay today. I'm not going to do a walking one today. I'm just going to stop here, I think. I might change my mind like I usually do, but I kind of want to walk the trail and think about what I've just been blabbing about. Separation. But anyway, I made a post about that on the Facebook, but I've been rewatching this film Alpha, and I saw it. I said to my mom, we have to go see Alpha. Takes place 20,000 years ago, like the upper Paleolithic, late Paleolithic, edge of the ice age in Europe, edge of the ice sheet, because by then the ice age was in full bloom, but not too long before it started to melt away. I was just like overwhelmed by it. I was in tears at the end of it. I was not crying, but just like, oh. I don't think my mom quite understood it first, because there's a lot of winter scenes, right? And I loved winter so much, especially when I was young. But no, it wasn't. That was beautiful, but it wasn't that. It was the whole scenario, right? Like, I'm sure in the magic land of Magicland, you go, hey, Catherine, we figured something out. Do you want to go back to 20,000 years ago? Forget this time? I go, yep, see ya. I miss all my friends, for sure, and family, but I go, yep, I'm off. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough. I could just go on more about that, but I won't. Okay, so hope everyone's doing great. I'm gonna continue searching for a way to get back to the upper Paleocene or middle Paleocene. I'd be fine. Paleocene, I'd be fine with too. If anyone knows, anyone has a little trick to get there, please let me know. Let me know in the comment section. Okay, ciao, and à la prochaine.